Welcome to Javel Stories. Before we continue with the story, please don't forget to hit the subscribe button, turn on the notification bell to always get notified for upcoming stories, and also share the story with loved ones and friends. Thank you very much. The rain fell softly that evening, painting the streets of the small town in glistening shades of silver. Mary sat by the window of her modest family home, her fingers tracing patterns on the foggy glass as her thoughts wandered. She had always been a dreamer, her heart longing for a love as profound as the stories she read in her favorite novels. And then she met John. It was at the town's annual festival, where laughter and music filled the air. John stood out among the crowd with his confident smile and striking features. His dark eyes held an allure that pulled Mary in instantly. He was charming, attentive, and seemed to hang on to every word she said that night. By the time the festival ended, Mary's heart was already his, but love, as she would soon learn, was not without its trials. Mary's parents, stalwart and traditional, saw John differently. To them, he was a man without roots, a drifter whose charming words couldn't mask his lack of ambition. They had worked hard to give Mary a stable life and hoped she would marry someone who could offer the same. "We're only trying to protect you," her father had said one evening as they sat in the living room. His face, lined with years of hard work, was serious as he continued, "John isn't the man you think he is. A husband needs to provide, and he doesn't seem like the type." Mary's mother chimed in, her voice soft but firm. "Darling, sometimes love isn't enough. You need stability, respect, and someone who will build a life with you." But Mary was steadfast. She argued passionately, defending John's character and their love. "He has dreams, and I believe in him. Isn't that what matters? That we believe in each other." Her parents exchanged weary glances, but Mary's resolve was unshakable. She was convinced that love could conquer all, and in the end, her determination won them over, albeit reluctantly. They agreed to meet John again, giving him a chance to prove himself. The day John came for dinner, he was on his best behavior. He charmed her parents with his wit and promised them a life of happiness for Mary. "I may not have much now," he admitted, "but I'll do whatever it takes to make Mary happy. She deserves the world, and I'll give it to her." By the end of the evening, her parents, though still cautious, gave their blessing. Mary was overjoyed, believing that this was the beginning of her happily ever after. The chapter ends with Mary and John's engagement announcement, a moment filled with hope and joy. But in the shadows of their newfound happiness lurked the unspoken fears of her parents and the secrets John would later reveal. The church bells rang loudly, their chimes echoing across the small town as the morning sun bathed everything in a golden hue. Mary stood before the mirror in her childhood bedroom, clad in a flowing white gown. The delicate lace sleeves hugged her arms, and the intricate beadwork shimmered as she moved. Her veil, a family heirloom, rested gently on her dark curls. Her heart raced with excitement and nervousness as she looked at her reflection. Today was the day she would become Mrs. Mary Evans. It felt surreal, like a scene from one of her novels. Her friends surrounded her, fussing over every detail. They laughed and teased her, but beneath their joy, a hint of concern lingered. "Are you sure about this, Mary?" her best friend Clara asked softly, pulling her aside. "I mean, he's wonderful, but are you sure you're ready for this step?" Mary smiled, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. "I love him, Clara. He's everything I've ever wanted. I know he's not perfect, but neither am I. Together, we'll make it work." The ceremony was a dream. The small chapel was adorned with white roses and soft candlelight. As Mary walked down the aisle, her father by her side, she felt like the happiest woman in the world. John stood at the altar, his gaze locked on hers. The love in his eyes was unmistakable, or so it seemed. The vows they exchanged were heartfelt. John promised to cherish and protect Mary, to stand by her through every storm. As they sealed their union with a kiss, the congregation erupted in applause, and Mary's parents, though hesitant, smiled through their tears. The reception was a lively affair, filled with laughter, dancing, and toasts to the couple's bright future. John held Mary close during their first dance, whispering promises of a life filled with love and adventure. In that moment, Mary believed that all her dreams were coming true. But as the festivities died down and the guests departed, John's expression shifted ever so slightly. It was subtle, a fleeting look of relief, almost as if a weight had been lifted. Mary didn't notice, caught up in her happiness. She was too in love to see the cracks that would soon appear. That night, as they drove away to begin their honeymoon, Mary looked at John and whispered, "I'm so lucky to have you." John smiled, his eyes on the road. "And I'm lucky to have you," he replied, though his tone held an edge Mary couldn't quite place. The honeymoon was everything Mary had dreamed it would be. John took her to a secluded cabin nestled in the mountains, surrounded by towering pine trees and a serene lake that mirrored the blue of the sky. It was their little paradise, a perfect retreat where the world melted away, leaving only the two of them. Mary woke each morning to the sound of birds chirping and John's warm embrace. They spent their days hiking through scenic trails, laughing as they stumbled over roots and marveled at the beauty around them. John seemed attentive and caring, making sure Mary's every need was met. In the evenings, they cooked together in the small kitchen, filling the cabin with the scent of roasted vegetables and freshly baked bread. One night, as they sat by the fire, John pulled out a small notebook. "I've been writing down our dreams," he said, his voice soft and sincere. "Places we'll travel to, things we'll achieve together. This is the start of something amazing, Mary." Her heart swelled with love and hope. She leaned into him, whispering, "I can't wait to see it all come true with you." But there were moments, fleeting and subtle, that gave her pause. John occasionally grew distant, staring out at the lake with an expression she couldn't read. When she asked him what was on his mind, he would dismiss her concerns with a quick smile and a change of subject. Mary told herself it was nothing, that everyone had moments of introspection. After all, they were still adjusting to married life. As the honeymoon ended, Mary felt a bittersweet pang. She was reluctant to leave the bubble of happiness they had created, but she was also eager to start their life together. John reassured her as they packed up their belongings. "This is just the beginning, Mary. Our best days are ahead." She believed him. Life settled into a routine when they returned home. John worked sporadically, taking on freelance jobs that allowed him to be home often. At first, Mary loved the arrangement. They had long breakfasts together, shared midday coffee breaks, and spent their evenings curled up on the couch. Mary had always dreamed of becoming an interior designer, and she took small steps toward her goal, sketching plans and taking online courses. John encouraged her in the beginning, often complimenting her work and brainstorming ideas with her. But soon, cracks began to form. John started coming home later than usual, offering vague explanations about meeting friends or running errands. His moods became unpredictable, shifting from affectionate to cold in the blink of an eye. Mary tried to brush it off, attributing it to the stress of adjusting to married life. One evening, after waiting hours for him to return, Mary confronted him. "John, where were you?" "I've been worried sick." He waved her off, his tone dismissive. "Relax, Mary. I'm not a child who needs a curfew. I was with some friends, blowing off steam." She bit her lip, holding back the frustration bubbling inside her. I'd appreciate it if you told me next time. I waited dinner for you." His eyes flashed with irritation. "You don't need to wait. Eat when you're hungry. Don't make this a big deal." The conversation ended there, but it left Mary feeling uneasy. She loved John, but the man standing before her seemed different from the one she had married. John's behavior grew more erratic as the weeks turned into months. He stopped helping around the house, leaving Mary to handle everything from cooking and cleaning to managing their finances. She began to feel more like his caretaker than his partner. "Why'd you let him treat you this way?" Clara asked during one of their rare coffee dates. Mary shrugged, forcing a smile. "He's just going through a rough patch. I know he'll come around." But deep down, Mary couldn't ignore the growing doubt in her heart. John had become more demanding, expecting her to anticipate his needs without a word of gratitude. When she tried to address it, he dismissed her concerns or turned the blame on her. One night, after a particularly harsh argument, Mary sat alone in their bedroom, staring at their wedding photo. She traced her fingers over the image, her heart aching. Where had the man she loved gone? John, meanwhile, had started spending more time away from home. He frequented bars with his friends, returning in the early hours of the morning. When Mary confronted him, he brushed her off, claiming he needed to unwind after a stressful day. "You wouldn't understand, Mary," he said one night, slurring his words. "You just sit here all day, dreaming about fairy tales. Real life doesn't work that way." Her heart broke a little more each time, but she clung to the hope that the man she had married was still there, buried beneath the bitterness. Despite the growing tension, Mary refused to give up on John. She threw herself into trying to fix their relationship, planning special dinners, writing him heartfelt notes, and doing everything she could to remind him of their love. But her efforts were met with indifference. John grew colder, his words sharper. He began criticizing her dreams, mocking her for pursuing her courses. "You're wasting your time," he sneered one evening. "You'll never make it as a designer. Just focus on being a good wife." The words cut deeper than she let on. Mary cried herself to sleep that night, feeling a loneliness she couldn't describe. But even then, she told herself that love was about perseverance, about standing by each other through the storms. Her parents noticed the change in her during their weekly phone calls. "Are you happy, Mary?" her mother asked gently. Mary lied, forcing cheerfulness into her voice. "Of course, Mom. Marriage is just an adjustment." But the truth was, Mary was drowning. And yet, she held on, hoping against all odds that John would remember the promises he had made to her. The days were long, and the nights were even longer. But Mary pushed herself forward. Each morning, she forced herself out of bed, determined to reclaim her life. The first step was finding a job. With her background in interior design, she started applying for positions at local firms. She faced rejection after rejection, each one chipping away at her confidence. But Mary refused to give up. She spent hours refining her portfolio, pouring every ounce of creativity into her designs. Eventually, her persistence paid off. A small design company took a chance on her, hiring her as an assistant. Though it wasn't her dream job, Mary threw herself into her work. She stayed late, took on extra projects, and quickly earned the respect of her colleagues. Her boss, a kind woman named Evelyn, noticed her dedication and began mentoring her. "You have real talent, Mary," Evelyn said one afternoon. "Don't let anyone make you doubt that." For the first time in months, Mary felt a glimmer of hope. As Mary settled into her new routine, she began to rediscover herself. She spent weekends exploring the city, visiting art galleries for inspiration, and taking long walks in the park. Slowly, the weight of her past began to lift. She also reconnected with her friends, who had been her lifeline during her darkest days. Clara, always the voice of reason, encouraged Mary to let go of her guilt. "You can't blame yourself for what happened," she said over coffee one morning. "John's choices were his own." Mary nodded, though the scars of her failed marriage still lingered. She spent evenings journaling, pouring her thoughts onto paper. Writing became a form of therapy, helping her process the pain and find clarity. Her parents, too, stood by her side. Her mother often brought over home-cooked meals, and her father would help fix things around her apartment. Their quiet support reminded Mary that she wasn't alone. With Evelyn's guidance, Mary began taking on more responsibilities at work. She designed her first solo project, a cozy reading nook for a local library. When it was unveiled, the positive feedback filled her with pride. Her success didn't go unnoticed. Evelyn promoted her to a full-fledged designer, giving her the confidence to take bigger risks. Mary started freelancing on the side, building a name for herself in the industry. Her designs, known for their warmth and creativity, began attracting attention. One evening, as she sat in her small studio apartment, sketching out a new idea, she realized something. She was happy. It wasn't the all-encompassing happiness she had once felt with John, but a quiet, steady contentment that came from knowing she was building a life on her own terms. Mary's business grew steadily, and she soon found herself juggling multiple clients. She moved into a larger apartment, one that reflected her newfound independence. Every corner was a testament to her journey, A cozy armchair she'd splurged on, a gallery wall of her favorite art pieces, and a desk cluttered with sketches. Her parents beamed with pride when they visited. "You've come so far, Mary," her mother said, hugging her tightly. "We always knew you had it in you." Though Mary had sworn off love, she couldn't deny the attention she received. Clients, colleagues, and even strangers often admired her strength and resilience. But Mary kept her focus on her work, wary of opening her heart again. "I'm not ready," she told Clara one evening. "Maybe I never will be." Clara smiled knowingly. "Take your time. You've earned it." While Mary's life flourished, John's took a dark turn. His second family abandoned him after discovering his lies and infidelities. The woman he had once paraded around left with their children, taking what little money he had left. John drifted from job to job, unable to hold down steady work. His once charming demeanor had turned bitter, and his health began to deteriorate from years of drinking and poor choices. Alone and penniless, he ended up living in a dingy motel, haunted by memories of his past. One evening, as he sat in the dimly lit room, he found an old photo of Mary. It was from their honeymoon, her smile radiant as she stood by the lake. The sight of it brought a lump to his throat. He realized, too late, what he had lost. Fate intervened one rainy afternoon when Mary, now a respected designer, attended a charity event in the city. As she mingled with guests discussing her latest project, she spotted a familiar figure in the corner. It was John, though he looked nothing like the man she had once known. His clothes were wrinkled, his face hollow, and his eyes filled with despair. Their eyes met, and for a moment, time stood still. Mary felt a surge of conflicting emotions, anger, pity, and a faint echo of the love she had once felt. She approached him cautiously, unsure of what to say. "Mary," he croaked, his voice barely above a whisper. I'm sorry." She stared at him, her heart pounding. "Sorry for what, John? For betraying me? For destroying everything we built?" Tears welled up in his eyes as he nodded. "I was a fool. I didn't deserve you. I don't expect forgiveness, but I needed to say it." Mary studied him, searching for sincerity. Part of her wanted to walk away, to leave him to the life he had chosen. But another part, the compassionate part that had once loved him, couldn't ignore his suffering. "Goodbye, John," she said finally, her voice steady. "I hope you find peace." As she walked away, Mary felt a sense of closure she hadn't realized she needed. The encounter reaffirmed her decision to focus on herself and her future, a future no longer tethered to the pain of her past. Mary's encounter with John lingered in her mind for days. Though she had walked away from him, a part of her felt unsettled. Clara noticed her distraction over lunch one day and asked, "You've been quieter than usual. What's on your mind?" Mary hesitated, then admitted, "I saw John. He's not the same. He apologized for everything." Clara raised an eyebrow. "And did you forgive him?" Mary sighed. "I don't know. Part of me wants to hate him for what he did, but another part of me feels sorry for him." Clara took Mary's hand. "It's okay to feel both, but don't let his pain overshadow your progress. You've worked too hard to move forward." Later that week, Mary learned from a mutual acquaintance that John had fallen gravely ill. The news stirred something within her. Though she didn't know him anything, she decided to visit him one last time. When Mary arrived at the hospital, she barely recognized the frail man lying in the bed. John's eyes lit up when he saw her, though his voice was weak. "You came." Mary sat beside him, her emotions a whirlwind. "I don't know why, but I did." John took her hand, tears streaming down his face. "I need you to know. I regret everything. You deserved so much more than I gave you." Mary nodded, her own tears falling. "I needed to hear that, John. Thank you." As she left the hospital, she felt a sense of peace. It was the closure she had been seeking, a final goodbye to the man who had shaped her past. After her visit to John, Mary threw herself into her work with renewed purpose. She began mentoring young women who faced challenges similar to hers, sharing her story to inspire them to persevere. Her designs became even more celebrated, each one reflecting her journey. Her studio flourished, and she expanded her business to include community projects such as affordable housing and public spaces designed to foster connection and healing. Mary's parents often attended her events, beaming with pride. "You've turned your pain into something beautiful," her mother said during one such event. "We couldn't be prouder of you." Mary smiled, feeling a deep sense of fulfillment. She had built a life of purpose and strength, one that no betrayal could ever take away. As Mary's success grew, so did her opportunities. She was invited to speak at conferences and featured in design magazines. Her story resonated with people, not just for her talent, but for her resilience. One day, she received an invitation to collaborate on a large-scale project, a cultural center in the heart of the city. The opportunity excited her, but it also felt daunting. It was the biggest challenge she had ever faced. "You're ready for this," Evelyn told her during their meeting. "You've proven time and again that you can handle anything." Mary accepted the project, determined to make it her best work yet. While overseeing the cultural center project, Mary met Ethan, a contractor working on the site. He was kind, patient, and genuinely interested in her vision. Though Mary had sworn off relationships, she couldn't ignore the connection they shared. Ethan admired Mary's strength and independence, but he never pressured her for more than she was willing to give. They worked closely together, their conversations often drifting from work to life and dreams. "You've been through so much," Ethan said one evening as they discussed the project's progress. "It's inspiring to see how far you've come." Mary smiled, her heart warming. "I've learned that pain doesn't define you. It's what you do with it that matters." As the project neared completion, Mary found herself spending more time with Ethan outside of work. They explored the city together, sharing meals and stories. Ethan's presence was comforting, but Mary remained cautious. One evening, as they sat by the waterfront, Ethan turned to her. "Mary, I know you've been hurt before. I don't want to rush you, but I want you to know that I care about you." Mary looked at him, her heart conflicted. "I care about you too, Ethan, but I'm not sure I'm ready for more." Ethan nodded, his expression understanding. "Take all the time you need. I'll be here." The day of the cultural center's grand opening was one of the proudest moments of Mary's life. The building stood as a testament to her hard work and resilience, a space that brought people together and celebrated creativity. As she gave her opening speech, Mary couldn't help but reflect on her journey. This center isn't just a building. It's a symbol of what we can achieve when we refuse to give up, even in the face of adversity. The audience erupted in applause, and Mary felt a sense of accomplishment she had never known before. After the success of the cultural center, Mary took some time to reflect on her life. She realized that, while her work brought her immense joy, she missed having someone to share her successes with. She invited Ethan for dinner one evening, wanting to express her feelings. "I've been afraid to open my heart again," she admitted. "But you've shown me that love doesn't have to hurt." Ethan smiled, his eyes filled with warmth. "I'll never stop proving that to you, Mary." Over the next year, Mary and Ethan built a relationship founded on trust and mutual respect. Though Mary remained independent and focused on her career, she allowed herself to lean on Ethan when she needed support. They traveled together, explored new projects, and celebrated each other's successes. For the first time in years, Mary felt truly happy, not because of someone else, but because she had found balance within herself. As the sun set on their favorite spot by the waterfront, Ethan took Mary's hand. "You've shown me what strength looks like, Mary. I'm honored to be part of your life." Mary smiled, tears of gratitude in her eyes. "And I'm honored to have found someone who values my journey." Mary and Ethan's relationship blossomed naturally, each respecting the other's space and independence. Ethan admired Mary's resilience and her unwavering dedication to her career and the causes she cared about. Mary, in turn, appreciated Ethan's steady presence and his ability to see her for who she truly was. Though Mary had found love again, she remained mindful of the scars left by her past. She and Ethan took things slowly, ensuring their foundation was built on trust and understanding. They often spent quiet evenings discussing their dreams and reflecting on their journeys. Ethan encouraged Mary to expand her outreach efforts, suggesting that she host workshops to inspire others. "You have so much wisdom to share," he said one night. "You've turned your pain into power, and people need to hear that." Moved by his words, Mary began organizing empowerment seminars, focusing on themes of resilience and self-worth. The events were a success, drawing attendees who were inspired by her story. Mary's life was full, and for the first time in years, she felt whole. One day, while preparing for a seminar, Mary received an unexpected letter from John's second family. His ex-wife wrote to thank Mary for visiting John during his final days and shared how deeply he had regretted his actions. "John spoke of you often," the letter read. "He admitted his mistakes and said you taught him what true love and forgiveness looked like. Thank you for giving him peace." The letter stirred conflicting emotions in Mary. Though her life had moved forward, this reminder of John's regret brought back painful memories. She shared the letter with Ethan, who listened without judgment. "You don't have to carry the weight of his choices," Ethan said gently. "You've already forgiven him in your own way. Focus on what you've built from the ashes." Mary nodded, realizing that her past no longer held power over her. She decided to respond to the letter, offering kind words and encouragement to the woman and her children. Mary's seminars gained national attention, and she was invited to speak at a major conference. Standing before a packed auditorium, she shared her journey with raw honesty. "I thought my world had ended when my marriage fell apart," she said. "But sometimes destruction clears the way for growth. I found strength in my pain and built a life I'm proud of. You can too." The audience gave her a standing ovation, and Mary felt a deep sense of fulfillment. Her story had become a beacon of hope for others, a testament to the power of resilience. Ethan surprised Mary one evening with a visit to a plot of land overlooking a serene valley. "I know how much you value creating spaces that inspire," he said. "I thought we could design one together, a home that reflects everything we've built." Mary was touched by the gesture. Together, they worked on the design, blending her love of cozy, welcoming spaces with his appreciation for practicality. The process brought them even closer, each decision reflecting their shared vision for the future. When the house was finally complete, it was more than a home, it was a symbol of their journey together, a place filled with light, love, and hope. Years later, Mary stood on the balcony of their home, watching the sun set over the valley. Her life was a tapestry of pain, perseverance, and triumph, each thread woven with care. She had built a thriving business, a loving relationship, and a legacy that inspired countless others. Ethan joined her, wrapping an arm around her waist. "Do you ever think about how far you've come?" he asked. Mary smiled, her eyes glistening. "Every day, and I'm grateful for every step, even the painful ones. They brought me here." As the stars began to twinkle in the night sky, Mary reflected on her journey. She had risen from the ashes of her shattered dreams, stronger and more determined than ever. Life hadn't turned out the way she had once envisioned, but it had given her something even greater, a story of resilience and a life of purpose. And in that moment, Mary knew she had truly found peace.